So let's unpack that. It's a couple of important questions you're asking within this one question. First of all, I think nobody knows yet what's in the proposal. However, I think it's both a little bit of a delay tactic, but also showing a sign that Iran realizes it's being boxed in by President Trump. That doesn't mean that President Trump is going to get his way. It doesn't mean that the proposal is going to be good enough. But I think the fact that they finally came up with a proposal is a good sign. We'll have to see what is in the proposal and whether it really hits the most important issues. Let's just hope that the proposal has enough on the nuclear that it allows President Trump to engage properly. I really don't. And look, I support President Trump completely. I think what he's doing is necessary. I think even reducing the military escalation at the moment is the right move. However, deep down, I think the Iranian regime is simply interested in burning the house down. I think that they want this nuclear power because they have very specific aims of dominating the region, not just destroying Israel. And unless they collapse or new leadership comes up and they become a more normal nation, I'm not optimistic that they will give President Trump what he needs and what he's seeking. Yes, I think first he's going to continue to try to choke them economically through the blockade that he's imposed on the strait, in addition to the blockade that they've imposed. But I think, first of all, if anything happens, meaning if they strike out at a US base or our allies, I think he'll go back in. But even if they don't strike, I think at some point he will lose his patience and he will start doing some precision strikes. I don't think he'll escalate to a very, very large military action until he at least sees how the strangulation of their economy works. I don't have enough insight into what Iran has stored, and we're seeing reports now of Pakistan opening some of its routes roadwise to deliver certain goods. I think that Iran has a lot more stamina. The regime has a lot more stamina than people think. And then the question is going to be, will the people get fed up enough that they're going to start to make trouble? And then will they be safe in making that trouble? Or will Iran start killing people indiscriminately the way they have? So there's a lot of moving parts to that question. I do think Iran has the ability to withstand a lot. Going all the way to November, it really depends how much they've stored and how much gets delivered to them around the blockade. I'm not sure President Trump would see them necessarily as a reliable mediator as much as a country that has a strong, deep relationship with Iran, a country that Iran actually trusts. There's probably very few of those that the U.S. can deal with. So he respects the Pakistani leadership. My guess is he's probably a bit annoyed at what's going on, but he has to choose between allowing that and keeping a potential mediator to make a bigger deal. So nothing is ever perfect. I'm sure he'd rather this not be happening because it does reduce to some degree the blockade. But if he had to choose between cutting them off and keeping them as a potential mediator for the bigger problem, that's the choice he's going to make. So I think what the president is referring to is that there are some Iranian leaders, diplomats, whatever you want to call them, who have shown a sign, who did show, I don't think that's true anymore, who did show a sign of willingness to talk, to negotiate, to come up with potential reasonable positions. But they're not really the leaders. They're not the head of the regime. And since those comments, we've seen that there's a tremendous amount of disarray among Iranian leadership. And that's part of the problem of who are we talking to? Who has the power to agree? We really have no idea. My own personal opinion is because there was this article in the New York Times this week that tried to distinguish the clerical leadership from the IRGC, and they made it seem like all of a sudden President Trump's moves has empowered the IRGC, the more radical IRGC, and we would have been better off with the clerics. That's not an exact summary, but that was the tone of the article. In my opinion, the clerics have always been in charge. They've always been radicalized. They're the ones that ordered all of the things, the nuclear potential weaponry that they were aiming towards, the missiles, the drones. They're the ones that have set this tone. Did they control it a little bit and keep it a little bit calm? Possibly. but I think they're really one and the same. They're all radical. They all have their theological, religious reasons to do what they're doing. And I don't see really daylight between the clerical leadership and the RGC. Plus, we really don't even know what the story is with the new supreme leader. Is he alive? Is he not? Is he incapacitated? Is he not? Is he really calling the shots, or is he sort of just being kept there as a puppet? Nobody really knows the inside story on that yet. Ultimately, I think it will be strengthened. Look, I think that generally speaking, most of the Gulf would have preferred this not happen, right? They are doing tremendous things. They're building, they're succeeding in so many different ways. And this has now caused a big bump in the road for them. But deep down, they also know that this dark cloud has always been hanging over them. So if President Trump is successful, I think everyone's going to be thrilled. If he's not successful, then people will grumble a bit. But ultimately, the U.S. is a very strong, necessary partner of the Gulf, and vice versa. The Gulf, most of these countries are really critical partners for the United States. So I think that relationship will only continue to be strong and thrive. There's no replacement for the United States. We're certainly not on the Gulf, and certainly not for Israel. But we also need the Gulf. So I think that that relationship will endure, and it'll be healthy and respectful, assuming we get a good president after President Trump finishes this term, because we saw what happened to some degree when President Biden was in charge. No, I never bet against President Trump. He does some amazing things. The Abraham Accords is one people used to say it would never happen. This one's trickier, right? You have Hezbollah. I think Lebanon, deep down, the Lebanese people want nothing more than to take over their country back from Hezbollah, back from being essentially occupied by Iran for a long time. The country's been decimated economically and everything else. And I have so many Lebanese friends who tell me that, like, they just want to live life. But if the Lebanese government is unwilling to disarm Hezbollah, and if when Israel tries to do it, everybody complains, I don't see how you get around that. It's different than what's happening in Gaza with Hamas, but there are shades of the same issue, which is when you have bad actors there taking over everybody's lives and nobody can take care of them, nobody wants to take care of the issue, it's very hard to make real progress on peace or at least normalization without fighting.